Hi, Founder fans. Jason here. Welcome to Founder of the Day Trivia. It is Thursday night, and we are going to trivialize the American Revolution. Thank you for joining me. I'm a little bit shaggy, as you may well know, unless you're new here. I had a beard for a very long time, shaved it just under 3 weeks ago. We're letting it come back in. It looks a little scruffy. I'm deciding whether or not to keep it clean for a while and just shave it back down, or to look gross for presumably a few months until the beard comes fully back in. We'll see how it goes. As of right now, need a haircut also, but what are you gonna do? We're gonna get by. As people are rolling in, let me know you're here so that I can know to wait for you as we do the answers. As always, we are going to open up with a little bit of what I like to call study hall. We are going to bounce through several American founders. Let me get back down there. We're going to run through some of the founders of this week. Pay attention because it might help you answer some of the trivia questions, and it gives people a few minutes to come on in. I know the notifications are only just going out after I go live. So here we go. Don't want to forget, need to open up here our timer because it was, let's do 5 minutes. Let's see if I can get through. Oops, wrong one. Got to open this up. Oh, there's so much here now. Countdown to trivia. There it is. 5 minutes on the clock. We're going to see if we can get through 5 founders in 5 minutes. So, number 1, actually an anti-federalist. I still haven't put the video out for this one in particular. I apologize, but let's get into it. So, 5 founders in 5 minutes. First of all, Anti-Federalist Montezuma. We don't know the author of the Anti-Federalist paper Montezuma. The name of the Anti-Federalist paper is Consolidated Government is Tyranny. What's really fun about the papers of Montezuma is it's just the one paper and it's super sarcastic. It's like, oh, it's going to be great. How wonderful that the aristocracy in the United States Senate can keep tabs on the average man by having them elect representatives to the House of Representatives, and they can then be controlled by their leaders, by the people in the United States Senate. How fantastic. It's one of the few Federalist or Anti-Federalist papers that is unbelievably sarcastic, and it's a whole lot of fun. Moving on to our next one. Hi, Troy. Thanks for showing up. Old Bacon Face. We're going to get to Samuel Chase in just a minute. Samuel Nichols. Samuel Nichols is really interesting. I reference him as the father of the Marine Corps. Truthfully, there's other people who could go by that title. There wasn't really a Marine Corps until under John Adams in 1798 when he brings in Benjamin Stoddert as the first Secretary of the Navy, and after which Benjamin Stoddert starts the Navy and the Naval Library, which is really important, but also starts the official Marine Corps. But Samuel Nichols is kind of a nobody. Comes from his uncle had been mayor of Philadelphia, but his father was just a simple blacksmith. Nichols does go to the College of Philadelphia, opens a tavern, and he joins one of the most popular hunting and fishing clubs in Philadelphia, and that seems to be why the Continental Congress chooses him to put together the first Marine Corps for the United States. He is the first commandant of the Marines. He is there for all 8 years of the war. He assembles these people. He goes with Essex Hopkins, the first Commodore of the Continental Navy. He lands the first Marines on foreign shores, which is in Nassau, the island of Nassau, where they attack and take some stores there. And he does some fighting in New Jersey. There's not a whole lot of marining going on, but I like to consider him the father of the U.S. Marine Corps. Lambert Wicks. Might be pronounced Wikis. There's a big debate about this. Michael Troy from the Amarev podcast and I always debate about how exactly to pronounce it. I believe it's pronounced Lambert Wicks. What is certain is he is the most successful naval commander in the Continental Navy. I know John Paul Jones has the famous sexy name, but Lambert Wicks took more between ships he sunk and ships he's captured. He had more than anyone else in just about a year and a half. Unfortunately, his ship is lost on its way back to the United States, and everyone on the ship dies, about 150 people, except the cook. Somehow the cook survives a shipwreck in a hurricane. Moving on, we're going to try and get through all these guys in under 5 minutes. 2 more. Samuel Huntington. I made a video about Samuel Huntington this week. I had not put enough study into Huntington until this week. Really fascinating guy. Pulled himself up from his bootstraps, as several Canadian founders did. Comes from humble backgrounds, little formal education, but does borrow library books in his early 20s, becomes a lawyer, ends up becoming King's Attorney, aka essentially Attorney General of Connecticut during the colonial time, supports the Revolution, goes to the Continental Congress, signs the Declaration of Independence, signs the Articles of Confederation, becomes President of the Continental Congress, and is President of the Continental Congress when the Articles of Confederation are ratified and the United States actually become united under kind of a government. Not going to get into that debate now. Huntington then goes on and becomes both Lieutenant Governor and Chief Justice of Connecticut at the same time until he's elected Governor of Connecticut, stays in that position for about a decade till he passes away. Last but not least, Samuel Chase, an amazingly interesting character in the Revolution. Another person who signs the Declaration of Independence, gets into some trouble because he was kind of trading. I should point out, as Troy said, Old Bacon Face was his nickname as a young man. He doesn't look that bacon face and facey to me here, but he is nicknamed Old Bacon Face in his like early 20s. By his friends. He ends up getting into some trouble because he is doing essentially insider trading. He tries to corner the flour market during the Revolutionary War, which is not cool. He does make it up in his local government in Maryland, eventually goes over to England, settles some things between after the war when it comes to private debts, comes back, does a lot of judiciating, and eventually is appointed to the United States Supreme Court. And he's in the United States Supreme Court as a Federalist, when Thomas Jefferson comes around as president, doesn't like what he's doing, and Jefferson gets the United States House of Representatives to impeach Chase. And though he is impeached, as we've learned all too much recently, once you're impeached, you go to the Senate for trial. He is in trial, overseen by Aaron Burr, after he has executed Alexander Hamilton. I know executed isn't the appropriate terminology. Samuel Chase gets off. He stays for about another decade on the Supreme Court. And there we go. I did it. I almost did it. Almost in just the right amount of time to get through 5 founders in 5 minutes. Excuse me, choking on myself. Not a good way to start. Already getting through my water. All right. I'm okay. We're going to bounce over here. I am going to pull up. It's trivia time. Troy? Looks like just me and you right now. We'll see who pops in a little bit later. This would probably be a good time to note that my spouse will be out of town next week, and I will have to do bedtime. Right now, bedtime is next door, and hopefully not too loud. So trivia is probably going to be like 9:15 next week. So I do apologize for any inconvenience that might cause. But that being said, we are going to update our timer to games. Timer games. There we go. We are going to change it to 1 minute. And we're going to put a question on the clock. Question number the first. Which Continental Navy captain captured or sank more British ships than John Paul Jones? And right off the bat, I made a little bit of a typo error there. It should be, which Continental Navy captain captured and sank total than John Paul Jones? As I mentioned before in my brief overview of the founders from this week, John Paulie Jones is the sexy name when it comes to the American Revolution, but he's not number one when it comes to actual effectiveness in the field. Matthew Horton, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the team. Mr. Malaspino, almost said it wrong. Mr. Malaspino has come out with Mr. Captain Wicks. He was only a captain. He was the 11th ranking commander in the Continental Navy, which is pretty low when you see what he did. And he did get the answer right if he would be Troy as opposed to Mr. Wicks. Let's see. We'll bounce over to another one. Matthew, let's see. Welcome aboard. Let's see if you get this one. The Battle of... What city was taken by the British after the Battle of Brandywine? Battle of Brandywine being an engagement in the American Revolution. You can tell from the phrasing of the question, the British did win that battle, and then they did capture an American city. What American city was taken under the control of Mother Britain, the greatest, the soon-to-be United Kingdom? What city was taken? Time's running low. Looks like it's just Matthew and Troy hanging out. We'll see some questions coming in. We got Troy with Philadelphia. Let's see if anyone else is going to pop up another question. Got 18 seconds for me to stall to see if anyone else wants to throw a question or an answer to the question out there. I will say, looks like pseudonymous. Pseudo. Pseudo also saying Philadelphia less confidently than Troy, but exactly as correct. It was Philadelphia. Battle of Brandywine really was the one that let the British go into Philadelphia. They then stationed their troops after their triumphant march in Germantown, and shortly thereafter the Battle of Germantown takes place. Let's do another query here. Who was president of the Continental Congress when the Articles of Confederation were officially ratified in 1791? On my screen I was forced, but Troy beat me in the Scream Catcher video. Well, that's what I see here. I apologize. That's YouTube. I apologize on behalf of YouTube. That's how it came in. Makes Malspino look easy. Laugh out loud. Yes, Malspino is pretty easy. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Right? Am I pronouncing it right? I hope so. I'm generally good at pronunciation. You've seen me read through the I messed up the timer. You've seen me read through the Federalist Papers now. There are 24 of them at this point. So, I might not understand all the words, but I'm pretty good at pronouncing them. Except I can't remember the one word. I'm not going to try. I can't pronounce it anyway. As for this particular question, the Articles of Confederation were, unlike the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, which was a group of people, we like this, yeah, we're good on this, okay, let's all sign it. The Articles of Confederation were approved by Congress and then sent to the separate states for individual ratification. Once a state government ratified the Articles, then their delegates would come back and sign it. So it actually took several years for ratification. I think the first state was in 1777, but it wasn't until 5 years after it was first published in 1781 that they actually came and ratified it. Thank you, Maryland. We have great answers here. Hanson and John J. Emu, thank you for coming. Please don't fail. Do your best. That's all we wish for here. And if it's any justification, everyone else has failed. It was Samuel Huntington, really one of the big founders of the week. John J. was replaced by Samuel Huntington in Troy, so you're not terribly far off. Hanson would replace Samuel Huntington, pseudo, so you're not terribly far off. John Jay was chosen as minister to Spain and he left. They replaced him with Huntington. Huntington was there when it was ratified, and then almost immediately, not immediately, but a month or so after it was ratified, they said, okay, now that we are in Congress assembled, and once enough people from enough states came to vote on a new president, they had their first election, and that's when Hanson was chosen. So that's why sometimes you hear people say Hanson was the first president of the United States. Not true. Neither was Samuel Huntington. They were not president of the United States as we know it. They were president of the United States in Congress assembled, which is very different. It was a ceremonial position. Essentially, president of Congress ran the show. They were chairman of the conversation. And additionally, they would sign all the important documentation, all the correspondence. So, with that, we proceed. Which Federalist candidate lost the most lopsided presidential election in history to Thomas Jefferson? Now, had a lengthy discussion this week about a certain family tree, so it should be easy to get the last name, but I want the first name too. Because there were some siblings who were involved, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, in the first, not the first two elections. They didn't run against Washington, but in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th elections of 1896 through 1808. There was a certain family involved. Troy may or may not have gotten the last name of that family. And Troy, the name you put is the cousin of the correct answer. The second cousin, first cousin once removed of the correct answer, but they need to be differentiated, and you're missing a middle name. So can you throw that middle name in there? I don't know. I am a few seconds ahead of you, so I'll say it. It is Charles. No, I threw you off. It is Charles Cotesworth Pinckney. Now, if you watch the video on the Pinckney family I put out this week, there were many Charleses and many Thomases. Thomas ends up going on to Thomas ran as John Adams' first vice presidential running mate. Then the next election, Cotesworth over here ran as John Adams' second presidential running mate and only lost for presidency by 12 votes. He was he was right behind Thomas Jefferson and John Adams to be third president of the United States. even though he was running as vice president at the time. It was in 1804 he runs against Thomas Jefferson as the Federalist candidate, and it doesn't go well. And he gets about 20%, 27% of the Electoral College. It is by far the biggest landslide in presidential history. Jefferson absolutely slaughters him. He then runs again against James Madison in 1808 and fares a little bit better. Loses terribly, but fares a little bit better than the worst of all time. Let's do one more, then we'll do our fun side hustle game. I don't know what to call it. How did General Washington handle the New Jersey Line mutiny on January 20th, 1781? So I very specifically put this date because earlier that same January, on January 1st, the Pennsylvania Line mutinied for the first time of several mutinies of the Pennsylvania Line. Pennsylvania Line mutiny was about 2,400 people who were leaving through New Jersey because they were under the impression their enlistments ended on January 1st, as was customary. However, they were told, no, they signed up to serve through the war, and they were leaving, and then certain delegates of the Continental Congress met them in New Jersey and said, listen, like, we'll give you a little bit of a pay raise, we'll give you pensions, we'll do this. They gave them a bunch of concessions, and the Pennsylvania Line said, okay, we'll go back. And then less than 3 weeks later, just 200 members of the New Jersey Line said, nope, we want the same thing. We're also out. And time runs out, and it does look like Pseudo has the right answer. 200 mutineers, they were confronted by the Continental Army. George Washington didn't like how the Pennsylvania Line was handled earlier in the month because he was like, now other people are going to want more. And they did. And Washington said, we have to set an example. And they cornered them with the army and said they're surrendering unconditionally. You get nothing. You are lucky we don't execute you, except for the 2 leaders who were hung. George Washington, hanging Continental soldiers. Yes, he did. Yeah, Troy, he actually did execute 2 of the leaders. There would be more mutinies after that. It's a lot of fun. And with that, we're going to take a little bit of a time out here at TO. Not really a timeout, but yeah, you confuse. There's a bunch of mutinies. We can talk about that at the end if you wish. Now, we're going to come over here to Happy Time, Fun Time. I forgot I closed my script here thinking, oh, we're all done with that. But no, I need to give us a timer. What do you say I put 10 minutes on the clock? How about 10 minutos? And I'm going to ask you guys to name me some American revolutionaries that signed the Declaration of Independence. Please do them one at a time. Last names are what I really care about. Start typing them in. I will make them magically appear on the screen as you get them correct. There are 56 names. Last week, I believe we got 34. So let's see if we can't top that. Okay, Emu coming out with Lee. Oops. Oh, what'd I do? I blew up my screen. Okay. Yes, Lee is not 1 but 2 correct answers, and they're hard to fit. There's a lot of names I had to fit. R.H. Richard Henry Lee, the most famous Lee, and F.L., his brother. These are the only 2 siblings to sign the Declaration. Francis Lightfoot Lee. Great name. All right. Adams. There are cousins named Adams, J. Adams, and S. Adams. You can guess who those are. Hancock. Yes. Hancock. Johnny Hands. Nice and big right up top. He was president. That's why he signed it first. I was here last week for the question, but I forget most of them already. Oh, that's all right. Matthew Thorne, thank you for Adams. I just popped up Adams. It's going to happen from time to time. The feeds don't always come through perfectly. That's the trouble with doing trivia on the interwebs. Huntington, yes, we were just talking about him, weren't we? Way to pay attention, Troy. Paca. Paca or Paca, I never know. They're alphabetical. Let me find it. Hughes, yes. Hughes Jr., where are you? Under H, yes. Hughes. Jefferson, Tommy J, absolutely got his name on that thing he wrote. Morris should get us too. That's right, look, you guys both thinking about Morris at the same time. They are unrelated. Robert Morris of Pennsylvania and Lewis Morris of the Morris family of New York from the land of Morrisania. Let's see, Reed, yes, R-E-A-D is correct. Thornton with the T-H, absolutely. Dr. Benjamin Rushelot is correct. DeHart. No, Emu. There is no DeHart. Wink, wink, wink. Maybe if you cut that down Wink, wink, wink a little bit. Let's see. Stockton, yes. John Stockton of the Utah Jazz signed the Declaration of Independence. Thornton, I think we just did. Williams, there is a Williams. Roger Sherman, well, he just signed absolutely everything, didn't he? So he's always going to be a correct answer. Hopkins and Hopkinson. Now, Pseudo, if you could do them one at a time, I'd appreciate it, but I'm just giving you trouble. Those are both correct answers. Hopkins and Hopkinson. Floyd from my old stomping ground. Willie Floyd. Absolutely. With. Sherman we just got. With, not wife. With. People gave me a lot of trouble on one of my early videos. With is on here. That's right. Who did it? Was it Confession? Yep. Hart. Not DeHart. I believe DeHart's on the Articles of Confederation. Different people. Penn. Yes. Not related to the Penn family that I'm aware of Pennsylvania. Certainly on the from North Carolina, I believe. Signed the Declaration. Yes. Rutledge. Thomas Rutledge, who replaced his older brother John. Morton. Morton Salt is not related, but I like to make the reference. Caesar Rodney, that is right. Troy, with his famous ride, made this whole thing possible, didn't he? Made it unanimous. Thank you, Caesar, for riding through a thunderstorm with one eye covered because of your horrifying disfigurement from cancer. Hall is a correct answer. R.T. Payne, that's right. It's not Tommy Payne. It is Robert Treat. What a Robert Treat. Payne, if I can find it. Yes, and I do believe we've got all the P's. Oh, Hayward. Hayward with the H's. There it is. One more H up there if you can think about it. Paca, I think we did pop up early. Braxton, Carter Braxton. That Braxton family was super powerful in Virginia. Often overlooked. Gwinnett, Button Gwinnett. Third most valuable signature you could get in the world right now. And Penn, we did pop up earlier. We're doing good. We're doing good. Ellery. William Ellery had just showed up in time to sign. He decided to sit at the table and watch everyone's faces while they signed the death warrant. Hooper, let's see. I thought there was one H. There were two. Now there's one H left. Gary. Elbridge Gary. Everyone's favorite. What a guy. Is a correct answer now. All right, Climber, Georgie C. Absolutely, popping up right there. And we're not even halfway through yet. We are really rocking and rolling right here. You guys are doing a fantastic job. Really proud of you guys. Yeah, I am. Despite the fact that I've gotten a little fuzzy on this side, I will fix that after we do this trivia. Robert Treat's on my mind. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35 of 56. Benny Franks. How could we forget Benny Franks? Was at 35. I forget what I counted. I think it was 33. So I think that's 34. Sammy Chase. I believe we were just speaking about that guy. And yes, sirree. He would get impeached a few decades later. Wolcott, don't you know it's insane? Oliver Wolcott is definitely up there. And I say that every time. That is a reference to a Vampire Weekend song. If you do not know what I'm talking about when I say Wolcott, don't you know it's insane? Now you know. You're welcome. It's a fun album. It was from 15 years ago or so. Beach. Kind of like a beach album. I would call it a beach album. Let me know if you can't think of a founder, if you think Vampire Weekend's first album is a beach album. And we're taking a little bit of a pause here. Reed, note, we got Reed, R-E-A-D. Joseph Reed, who spelled R-E-E-D, did not sign the Declaration. He was, at the time, serving as president, a.k.a. governor of Pennsylvania. Middleton, yes. Arthur Middleton had just replaced his father, who was not ready to sign for independence, and he did. Few, just a few. William Few. With F. No, the only F's are Franklin and Floyd. I'm sorry, confessional. William Flew is a person. I think it's William. Isn't that William? Pretty sure it's William. We're doing really good here, though. Let's see. Who do we got? We've got... If you ever watched The West Wing, the president in The West Wing is named after a signer of the Declaration, whose name we have not chosen. William Whipple we also have not chosen. A person I'm a particular fan of. Played an important role in eliminating slavery in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Ingersoll, no, Ingersoll is not on this particular document. He is on later documents. And he is an inaugural member of the United States Supreme Court as an associate justice. Not on the Declaration of Independence? I don't think there's anyone with I. A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I. No I's. Fitzsimmons. Sorry, we've taken care of all the F's. Fitzsimmons is one of the Catholic signers of the Constitution. I point out that he's Catholic because being Catholic was a minority at the time, and the fact that Catholics were suddenly signing documents and being allowed to enjoy politics in certain colonies did help lead to the establishment of freedom of religion in the First Amendment. Taylor. Man, now I'm forgetting. Yes, Taylor. There he is. George Taylor, the indentured servant, who made his way up to signing the United States Declaration of Independence. Oh, Emu, don't give up. Don't give up. Troy with Walton. That's the correct answer. I'll give you a hint, confessional. Famous actress, first name Reese. No one else answer. Give it a confessional. All right, that's all you got. Well, again, I'm drawing blanks on hints. I want to give good hints. The neighbor in Full House. There it is, confessional. You got it. Whammy. The neighbor in Tool Time. That's not the name of the show. What is it? Home Improvement? The neighbor in Home Improvement. Perhaps the most generic name in the most generic last name in the whole world. That's a really good hint. How about another one? Synonym for rock. Yes, confessional. I didn't even give you a hint for that, but yes, Harrison is the last H. Well done. You're not. See, got it. It's gotta rack that brain a little bit. Oh, okay. There's yes, Troy Wilson. That is the neighbor. That is the neighbor from Home Improvement I was referencing. Most generic last name in the world. Oh, and the family from New York, although also a governor of New Jersey, there is a last name of founders from New York. We did get Jefferson, fortunately. This is just a super common last name. When it comes to the American Revolution, a big family, mostly from New York. One of the daughters married John Jay, and I'm not giving it away. He did not sign this document. A governor of New York had this last name. A governor of New Jersey. His cousin was Chancellor of New York. His brother was a signer of this particular document. Wilson, we did already get. Yeah, he popped that up. I know I'm on a little bit of a delay for some people. Right. 12 seconds, running low. Now it's time, guys. I know people are popping in. Livingston, there it is. LB showing up to kill it. We got Morris. We did get both the Morrises, but coming out with the Livingston just in the nick of time. And I know I'm a little bit ahead of you guys, so you probably pop in a few names as time runs out. While we do this, we're really successful. We did really well. Let's count them up. Emu, we'll give you Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Clinton, pseudonym Clinton is a great guess. None of the Clintons actually signed any of the documents, but Clinton, I did say governor of New York, and that is Clinton. That was a mistake on my part. The Clinton family was an important family in New York for sure, but didn't happen to sign this document. Oh, and now you're just coming out with names. No, the Schuyler. I know you love John Barker Church over there, don't you? He's a fun character. We can talk about him later. Philip Schuyler was currently the number 3 or 4 technically, but 3 ranking major general in the Continental Army over at war at the point. What was the West Wing one? All right, I'll give you the West Wing in a second. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47 out of 56. So we only missed 9. That was awesome. Really well done, guys. The West Wing one is Josiah Bartlett from New Hampshire. He's governor of New Hampshire. I probably say this every week, but it's one of my fun trivia facts from television. Is that the show The West Wing? What's his name? Martin Sheen played a character named Josiah Bartlett, who was president of the United States, and they purposely gave him this same name to be a fake descendant of the signer of the Declaration of Independence. Abraham Clark from New Jersey, we missed. That's okay. Lewis. Excuse me, Francis Lewis, his wife has a really interesting story. She was captured for a little while by the British because her husband was signing the Declaration, and his son Morgan Lewis would go on to be governor of New York. Excuse me. Thomas Lynch Jr. His father was also there, but had a stroke and was around the corner and couldn't make it to sign. Thomas McKeon, Pennsylvania. Nelson, I don't know why his first name always escapes me. George Ross, who's like third cousin Betsy Ross, is pretty famous. Smith is the most generic name in the world. That's what I was referencing when I was trying to get you to say the most generic name in the world. I gave a quick hint of synonym for rock, which is stone. And that's it. That was a really great job, guys. So we should be proud of ourselves. I'm going to pop over to trivia here. Let's bounce up to our new question. And while we do that, I do have to update the timer. So, which founder signed the Declaration, refused to sign the Constitution, and later became Vice President of the United States anyway? I am going to change this up to... Oh, man, that's big. Okay, I'm going to change this up to 1 minute. There we go. And we're off. I'm going to take a quick sip of water because I've been talking so much. I'm choking on my own voice. You'd think I wouldn't choke. It's so nasally. It's can't help the way I speak. Which founder of the United States of America, excuse me, signed the Declaration, then later would sign the Articles of Confederation, then went to the Constitutional Convention, was in the room when everyone else signed and said, no thanks, this is not cool, fought against the Constitution, got passed, and he later went on to be Vice President of the United States anyway. I will give you a hint if you watched my video this week on the most overlooked founders from Massachusetts. This gentleman was number 1. His name also is fairly famous compared to most founders today, but in a very slanderous way that really isn't very fair. Those are some hints. Those are good hints. He's a really important founder who, this is why he's number 1 on my overlooked guys from Massachusetts. Even though it's a name people recognize, he is overlooked. Elbridge Gerry. They call it gerrymandering. They mispronounce his name in by giving him credit for something he really didn't care for. He did sign the document as governor, but he did not like the idea of gerrymandering. But that's what his constituents had decided on. Look him up. Elbridge Gerry. Super important. Oh, this is our not American Revolution question of the week. Every week, question number 7 is going to be not American Revolution. Who was president of the United States when the Teapot Dome scandal began? Now, I will note that this president, unfortunately, does pass away in office. That's a hint for you. He does pass away in office, but, and that is kind of as the scandal's coming to light about 2 years later. Audrey, well, thank you. I love that you come and comment on my videos. Let's see. Anonymous, Pseudo, that's your name now. You're going to have to deal with it. Pseudo coming through with President Harding. Warren G. Anybody? Troy coming in. Also supporting the Harding. That's interesting. It's interesting. People seem to be in agreement on this particular discussion. As time runs down, rightfully so, it is Warren G. Harding. Warren G. Harding's a fun character. So he was the first president elected after women achieved the right to vote. And I've seen discussions, and I don't want to be sexist about this, and the discussions were sexist about it, but I've seen analyses that many women, now that they have the right to vote for the first time, they hadn't yet gotten radio, so they didn't necessarily hear him, but they saw pictures of him in the paper. And this isn't just women, I should say men too, but he just looked presidential. He wasn't. He has kind of unarguably the most corrupt presidency of all time. And what's really dies in office gave it away. I'm sorry, Troy, I shouldn't have done that. I mean, Wilson kind of, he didn't die in office, but he had that stroke and disappeared for the last year, where essentially Edith Wilson was president of the United States. Harding's a fun character. I also had this analysis recently. Again, not American Revolution. We'll get right back there. But essentially, you have World War I, and all of these young men die in the war. Hundreds of thousands, I think. Don't quote me. I study the American Revolution mostly. And then they come home, and then the Spanish flu of 1918 kills 1 million people in America, like millions worldwide. So the 1920s, we think of the Roaring Twenties, and it was pointed out to me recently. One of the reasons it was roaring, is because the Spanish flu, as opposed to our recent plague, the Spanish flu, the primary people who died were between the ages of 18 and 40. So it was young adults who passed away from that particular thing. So it was young adults who died at war, young adults died from that disease. So the Roaring Twenties was like literally the survivors just partying down. And that's why you have the Teapot Dome scandal come through, which Warren G. Harding, he seemed to be a nice enough guy, but he did sign off on it, though he seemed to be very influenced by his people, his cabinet, who were terribly corrupt. Question the next, number 8, back to the American Revolution. Which declaration signer went on to be the first Supreme Court justice to face impeachment? Almost 30 years after signing the Declaration of Independence, this gentleman had become a justice, an associate justice on these United States Supreme Court, and was the first person to face impeachment. Again, I will repeat what I said a little bit earlier for anyone who's joining us later. We've learned in the last several decades that impeachment means you are you go to trial in the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives impeaches you, but then you actually go to the actual trial in the United States Senate, which this person survived. And that Senate trial was overseen by Aaron Burr. Just about the time he got rid of Alexander Hamilton. As time's running down, I do see one answer coming in. We got Troy saying old bacon face. That seems a little crazy, but that is actually the correct answer. It was Samuel Chase, who in his early 20s was given the nickname Old Bacon Face by his friends, which is funny for so many reasons. You know what? Real quick, we're going to bounce back up to the study hall. That's him right there. I'm blurry for some reason. He doesn't really look like a bacon face, though this was when he was a justice, so he was several decades older by that point. Maybe he outgrew his bacon face. Either way, do continue. Didn't mean to do that. And what was it? Question the 8th? Yes. No. 9. True or false? In Federalist number 24, Alexander Hamilton argues for a standing army. Now, if you take the time on Tuesday afternoons or nights, whatever time zone you're in, to come hang out and join me in a read-along of the Federalist Papers, you'll probably know the answer to this because it was essentially the entirety of his discussion this week. I'll remind you in Federalist number 23, Alexander Hamilton was talking about common defense being the number one reason you needed the Constitution, and to have that Constitution, to have that defense, you needed a government that could raise an army and navy, that could control the army and navy instead of delegate control to the separate states, and pay for the army and navy with the power to do literally any laws. So, let's see. True. Oh, thank you guys. I'm late, but I'm here. Well, welcome, Alex, just in time to see. True. I appreciate some of the comments here. Everyone's saying thank you for enjoying that particular episode. I did also very much enjoy it. The last few Federalist Papers have been easy because it's just Hamilton punching in the same point as opposed to some of the other ones that were lengthy and had a lot going into them. So it's a lot easier to just harp on one subject for half an hour than to go through, like there was that period there where Madison was just going through like literally ancient history. But yes, it was true, despite what many Americans like to say now about the American Revolution, some of the founders were against standing armies, but some, including the ones who wrote the Constitution, especially Mr. Hamilton over here, very much supported the idea of a standing army. He does set it in gently in this paper, saying, well, we just need some forts on the frontier to have a standing army, and maybe some ports to have an army for a little bit. Just a small army, but still a standing army nonetheless. It's like, all right, dude. I'm sure, yeah, it'll just be a tiny standing army. That's how standing armies work. Anyway, last question of the afternoon. Who gave the State House Yard speech in defense of the United States Constitution shortly after the document was sent out for ratification? Now, you may realize what I literally just realized as I hit this up is the same question from last week. I I apologize. Let's see if you remember who wrote the State House Yard Speech, an extremely important argument for the Constitution in Pennsylvania just after the ratification process had begun. So I'm not terribly disappointed that this question came back. I couldn't think of a 10th question. I went downstairs, cleared my mind, thought of another question, and then forgot to type it in when I came up here. So let's see if you guys, I'm actually happy. I want to see if any of you remember who wrote the State House Yard Speech. I assure you there'll be a different question at the end next week. And as time elapses, we've got answers coming in. And yes, Troy remembered. It was James Wilson. And now I'm racking my brain. What was the question I was going to ask? Oh, man, I took time to come up with another question. Man, every week I screw up the last question. So for those of you who are new here, make sure you leave after question number 9. Because number 10 is never going to work out too swimmingly. There was someone that was mentioned earlier, and I don't recall who it was, that we were going to pop back on to. Oh, John Barker Church. Okay, you know what? I will bring myself back up while we close out here, and I am going to real quick get rid of this blur that seems to happen for some unknown reason, and I'm going to tell you the story about John Barker Church real quick. Again, I apologize for looking disheveled. I am deciding whether or not to grow the beard back in. It's almost 3 weeks, and I look gross. I also need a haircut. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You guys saw me with a beard, most of you, for a very long time. So deal with that. John Barker Church. In the play Hamilton, the musical, on Broadway, it says there's a line in that musical, which is great, by the way. Even if you don't like musicals, if you like the American Revolution, I highly suggest you at least listen to the soundtrack. There's a lot of fun American Revolution songs on there, and you don't get a lot of fun American Revolution songs. But there is a line in there where Angelica Church is singing the line, "I have found a wealthy husband. He is not a lot of fun, but..." And essentially the play leads you to believe that Angelica Schuyler couldn't marry Alexander Hamilton. She was the oldest daughter, so she had to go marry a wealthy husband. That was the intention, generally speaking, and they literally say that outright in the play. The thing is, that's not what she did. She eloped with a gentleman named John Barker Church. Though that was not the name he was going by. His actual name eludes me, but John Barker Church ran into some gambling debts in England, so he fled his debts to the United States. He was a quick talker, and he went to the Continental Congress and said, "Hey, I can audit people if you want." And they said, "Sure, go ahead. We're having some trouble up in New York. Go audit General Schuyler." So this rando shows up and audits General Schuyler. Schuyler does not care for him, but he woos her daughter. His daughter, Angelica Schuyler. And he is using a fake name and fake identification, almost like he's an underage kid sneaking into a bar. And they decide to elope. Interestingly, this part of New York was very Dutch, and while we traditionally in America traditionally want to ask the father for a daughter's hand in marriage, at the time, in Dutch traditions, it was you asked the mother. Well, they didn't ask anyone. They eloped and ran off to Paris. And they lived in Paris for several years, when eventually they reveal themselves to be the Churches. I can't believe the fake name is escaping me. I really apologize. I think it was Carter. I want to say Carter. I'm not 100% sure. They're in France, and then they send word back home, "Hey, guess what? That was never really his name. He was living under a fake identity." He ends up being able to pay off his debts, and then he starts working with his brother-in-law, Alexander Hamilton, who does also marry into the Schuyler family, and they start several banks together that end up trading on the New York Stock Exchange. He also then goes and becomes a minister to Parliament. So, just to recap, this husband who's not a lot of fun, according to the play Hamilton, he fled debts from Europe, audited his future father-in-law who did not like him, eloped with Angelica Schuyler, goes to France, tells the world, "Hey, I was lying about my name, but now that I have money to pay off my debts, it's okay." Ends up from Paris helping Hamilton start some of the earliest banks in New York and the first banks to trade on the New York Stock Exchange, then goes to England, and after being an American revolutionary in all but name, becomes a minister to Parliament. Just so next time you hear that line, he's not a lot of fun. I think it's Confessional is the one. Oh, Pseudo. You're the one who keeps bringing up Church. I think you brought him up last week too. He was a lot of fun. At least for me, when I get to study American history, he's one of those fun characters from the Revolution. Underrated sneaking around. Yes, very naughty. Yes. No. He sounds like a fun time. He sounds like I want to watch my language. This is technically, according to YouTube, not a family show, but you might have kids on in the background. He sounds like kind of a jerk. But who doesn't? This is America. With that, pretty much wraps up our week this week. I sure hope you guys enjoyed trivia. If you've come this far and have not yet, do me a favor and hit like. That way more people can find out about the channel. While playing trivia, a bunch of people pop in and then bounce real quick, but some of you find me. And the more of you who do find me and also hit like, the more people will continue to find us and come play along. As I add more games to go with trivia, the more the merrier, right? Troy, thank you so much. You have a good weekend too. Should shout out every Sunday at 7 p.m. For the Patriots who support the channel on Patreon. I do a live video. I do take clips of that. As you may have seen, my Pinckney video this week was clips from that. So if you did want to support the channel, that is really the biggest bonus other than getting your name at the end of the videos when I say I am your humble and obedient servant. And then the Patriots show up.